Hi, my name is Heather Cuevas. I'm an assistant professor here at the University of Texas at Austin School of Nursing, and I'm the principal investigator of the Memory, Attention, and Problem-Solving Skills for Diabetes project. This project is funded by the National Institutes of Nursing Research at the National Institutes of Health. Dean Steifbergen, who's the Dean of the School of Nursing here at UT Austin, is one of the co-investigators. We have several consultants on the project. Dr. Rothman Hilsebeck is a neuropsychologist at Dell Medical School, and she is also the director of the Mulva Memory Clinic. Dr. Thomas Blevins is the founder and medical director of Texas Diabetes and Endocrinology, and he has graciously given us time and space to enroll and recruit participants. And Dr. Adam Sales is a biostatistician who will be working on the statistical portion of the project. This module is just an introduction to the intervention to let you know a little bit about what to expect for the rest of the project and to go through just some of the background of the project as well. Really, the biggest goals for this project are two. One is to understand how diabetes affects cognitive function, and then the reverse, how cognitive function might affect diabetes self-management. So that's the one big goal. And the other one is to help you. The other one is to help you understand what you can do to maximize cognitive function and at the same time maximize, hopefully, diabetes self-management. I had a participant in another study say that she felt like what she did for her brain was good for her diabetes, and what she did for her diabetes was good for her brain. So I think here we're going to discuss all of those things and how they fit together to really help you maximize the things you want to do. So we'll have several modules for you to work through, 8 exactly. One is the introduction. Several will work through different cognitive domains. Some will work through different lifestyle modifications that you can use for diabetes and for cognitive function. And then the very last one will help you just bring it all together. So what can you do that you learned in all the prior modules long term? What can you keep on doing? What worked for you, what didn't, and you move from there. The other part of it are the brain games. They're essentially video games, but there are video games that have been developed to sort of train your brain and to work on different functions of cognition. So one type of game works on memory, one type of game works on attention. And they start out easy, but as you have success in the games, they get just a little bit harder. And progressively as you move through, I think there's something like 56 levels. The last one could be pretty tough. But don't get discouraged. This is not things, they're not things that you're getting graded on. This is really, it's like exercise. When you want to run a marathon, you don't start off running 26.2 miles. You start with half a mile, or you start walking, and you work your way up to that 26.2. Well, this is kind of the same thing here. If you start practicing several days a week, about 20 minutes each time, you'll work your way up to doing the max that you want to do. So we're asking folks to practice every day about 20 minutes. If you can't make that, it's okay. We just want you to have this for your use and to be able to do it as much as possible. Here's an overview of the classes and the different modules that you'll go through. Really, I think the biggest one is putting it all together, because this will help you long term. It'll help you take what you learned in each of those modules and how to apply it. As you go on with life, etc., after this, things will continue to need to be modified, and you can always go back to the other modules to look at those and say, hey, you know what, this isn't working anymore. Let me go back to this and see what other things I can try. So in each class, we'll focus on the strategies. We're going to focus on things that you can actively do. We'll give you some background. We'll teach you a little bit about diabetes. We'll teach you a little bit about cognitive function. Some of those things you may already know, but we really want to help you fine-tune the things that work for you. Figure out the things that didn't work, and then move from there. Again, the focus of the program is cognitive rehabilitation. This is the exercise for your brain. This is the intervention that, again, will hopefully get you to use the different synapses and neurons that weren't used before and strengthen those connections a little bit more. Again, the things for you to do are pretty simple. There's really just 3 things. Taking responsibility, watching the videos, playing the games, and then trying out the different strategies. Okay, so you may relate to some of these things that are on the screen. These are not every kind of challenge you might have with cognitive function, but think about how you relate to these ideas. Think about the things that you're concerned about as far as cognitive function goes. Can you think about situations maybe in your work or at home or just in your day-to-day life where you've had difficulty, and start to think about how you might work around those or how you might work to improve those, and recognize also that you're not alone. We've had 84 people respond in the first wave of recruitment for this project. So we've got a lot of responses of people saying, I haven't been talked to about cognitive change in diabetes. I've been talked to about, kidney problems and heart problems and damage to my nerves, but no one's really mentioned cognitive function changes as a complication of diabetes. And it absolutely is. Here are some more examples here of different ways you might see that you're having difficulties. Again, thinking about these cognitive changes as a complication of diabetes, it doesn't mean it's stuck. That doesn't mean that you are stuck with this problem. It's kind of like blood pressure. You take a medication for the blood pressure and it improves it. Well, okay, so it's not a medication, but you can do some activities to help improve cognitive function. And it may also be that it's not just diabetes that's affecting cognitive function. Maybe you're stressed, maybe you have anxiety, maybe you're having trouble sleeping, and we'll talk about those things too and talk about ways that you can improve those issues. Now, another question we get a lot are, how do we know that this is a problem related to diabetes or just related to getting older? None of us are going to have the same type of cognitive function we had when we were 25 as when we're 65. I certainly don't have it, at 45. But think of the age-related changes as happening more slowly and more gradually, and they don't necessarily affect your daily life. They may in the fact that you're a little bit slower, possibly. Maybe your response time is a little bit slower, but the diabetes-related memory changes may actively affect your life. You're forgetting appointments, forgetting medications, problems remembering how to do something at work, and not necessarily to compare yourself to others, but people without diabetes have less of a risk for cognitive problems, and so they may not make the same mistakes at the same age that someone with diabetes might. So really, it is very difficult to predict who will have cognitive problems within diabetes. There is a bigger risk for cognitive problems if you are diagnosed with diabetes, and then if you do have a diagnosis of a cognitive problem like mild cognitive impairment or dementia, then if you have diabetes, it's a quicker progression of that problem. So if you have dementia, then you may progress problematically so a little bit faster than someone who doesn't have diabetes. So part of what we're looking at and why we're having you wear the continuous glucose monitors and why we're asking you so many questions about cognitive function and how you manage your diabetes is we're trying to see, are there any kind of patterns here? Are our high blood sugars, how are they related to cognitive change? How are really low blood sugars related to cognitive change? Or is it the variability between the two that causes cognitive problems? So if you go from 75 to 275, is that the problematic thing? The science is still a little bit out on that. We don't know, which is part of why we're doing this study. The other thing too is we want to know, when you were diagnosed versus how long you've had diabetes, essentially. And so that may give us some idea. Is it the longer you've had diabetes that's problematic, or is it just, is it the glucose changes alone? So we're looking at all of those things. Right now, we can't answer the question of the patterns. So again, the progression of cognitive change also can depend on what else is going on. So do you have high blood pressure? Do you have high cholesterol? If you have a thyroid problem that's not controlled, if you smoke, all those things can contribute to how cognitive function changes over time with diabetes. Well, and with anyone for that matter. So intelligence. This is not, if you're having cognitive problems, this is not a change in your intelligence. This has not made you less intelligent. This has not made you I don't want to use a stupider, I guess, don't be worried about that. This is just really how you get to the information you have, how you learn new information. Think of your brain as like a file cabinet, and it has all the files in it with everything you've ever learned over your lifetime. Well, the problem here is that you're not able to pick out the right file folder within the file cabinet. How do we get you to be able to access that file folder a little bit easier? So how do we get to that? And we'll talk about some of those things as we move throughout the intervention. Again, so really I just want to hammer this home because I don't want people to think that we are saying that their IQ has gone down because they've had cognitive problems. This is absolutely not the same at all. Sometimes I think, especially in our society, we think that people who are a little bit slower, they don't have as much intelligence, and that is not the case. It just may be that people are thinking things through a little bit more thoughtfully, or that the processing speed is not as fast, but it does not mean they're lacking in intelligence. All right, so this is an example of a problem. There's a boulder in the road. How do we deal with this boulder? That's kind of what the compensatory strategies that you'll learn about in this project are for. So maybe you blow up the boulder, maybe you find a way around the boulder. It just depends. I would not recommend blowing up anything, but we'll talk about those different strategies, and we'll talk about how those strategies depend on what kind of problems you have. And we'll talk about how those strategies depend on who you are. What works for you in your life might not work for somebody else. Kind of like a diet. What works for one person might not work for another person. Maybe someone has great success with the low carbohydrate diet and someone says no, high carb vegan is the way to go for them. It might not make a difference. All right, so with this, the big piece here is recognizing that you have a roadblock. This is just thinking about where you see most of the problems occurring. And it may not be something obvious, but start to think about where at work or where in your relationships that there are problems. Is it a memory problem? Is it you're not as quick as you used to be? Or is it activities that you want to accomplish? What's keeping you from those activities? Is it because you can't remember to keep an appointment? Is it because you don't feel as sure about yourself in certain areas? And we're going to try to help you with that for sure. Again, we want to not compare yourself to others, but you can see what other people are doing. We'll talk about what has worked for other people, and then try that for yourself. If it doesn't work, then try something else, and we'll help you work through those. Again, talking about the changes that you're facing, the slide says we'll discuss the changes that you're facing. Obviously, since this is recorded, we won't do it on the modules, but we will have time set up where we can meet on Zoom. We can talk about different strategies. You can bring questions to the discussion. You can bring ideas to the discussion. We want to hear from you. These are optional. You don't have to attend these in real-time meetings, but I think they might be helpful, especially if you have a certain goal that you're trying to meet and you're just finding one little spot that you're not able to get around, and maybe somebody else in the group or one of the research staff can help you with that. So we'll let you know, we'll keep you posted on when those will occur. All right, so Brain HQ. This is the video games, the brain games that you'll do. You will have received, or you will receive, an email that is specific to Brain HQ. It's an email that you can only use to log in to Brain HQ. It's not an email that you would use, to email work or friends or whatever. And then we'll send you a password that goes with that. It's a very easy to remember password, but don't worry if you forget. Just email one of the research staff and we can send you a new one. Again, we're asking you to work on it at least every day if you can. At minimum, at least 3 days a week of practice. Don't try to do an hour every day. I mean, if you like it that much and you want to do that much, then that's fine, but we really recommend not getting yourself worn out on them. The games get progressively harder. Again, so you may, as you progress, you may not be able to do as long as you would like, because it can get just slightly frustrating. I have done these, and it's fun to try to work through some of them. All right, so I know this says next week, but for the next module, we're going to have you complete this self-survey of thinking skills. And this is really just a survey you can take to give you some prompts or to give you a starting place to think about, where am I having problems? What can I work on? Maybe I'm having problems in this area and not so much in this area. So this is where you might want to focus. Keep this on hand, fill this out. We'll link a PDF on our website, and you'll be able to print it if you want to. But answer some of these questions and rate where you're having problems. And so that way you can start to think about what kind of strategies you would like to incorporate. All of this information will be on the website, so cuevaslab.com. If you are part of the intervention and you're going to view the subsequent modules, so the attention through the last one, which is putting it all together, you will need a password for the website. So we will send that to you if you're part of the intervention. Obviously, as always, if you have questions or concerns about any piece of the project, please email us. You can see our contact is on our website at cuevaslab.com, and you can just go to the website and click on the contact tab on the left-hand side of the website, and we will get back to you as soon as possible, usually within 24 hours, if not sooner. So that was just the introduction to the intervention. We hope to see you in one of the question and answer sessions, and thank you for your attention.